Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of Soil Part 1. In this session, we are going to study about Introduction to Soil. So, we are going to study about what is soil in this particular session. We are also going to study about what is soil fertility, organic matter that is present in the soil, and that is also a part of the soil. Soil texture, what is soil texture? What are the different types of soil texture? Again, according to that, soil can be classified. So that we are going to study. Compaction of soil, how the soil is important in the terms of compaction, means how compact the soil is. That also we are going to study in this particular session. And soil biological activity. So there are so many microorganisms and worms that are present in the soil. So how their activity going to help in soil formation as well as maintenance of the fertility of soil, that all we are going to cover up in this particular session. Okay, so let us start the session with introduction to soil. Soil health is the foundation of productive practices. So if the soil is healthy, soil is having all the nutrients and humus, manure, right, and also some of the microorganism and worms, then that is going to be very productive in terms of farming. Fertile soil provide essential nutrients to the plant. Fertile soil means the required nutrient for the proper growth of the crop plants that are present in the soil. So that particular soil is called as fertile soil, right? So fertile soil provide the essential nutrients for the growth of the crop plants. Important physical characteristics of the soil structure and aggregation allow water and air to infiltrate and roots to explore. So the physical characteristics of soil, what is the physical characteristics of the soil? That going to consider the structure of the soil. Okay, and aggregation allow water and air to infiltrate. So this is very, very important. There must be porosity in the soil. Porosity means pores should be present in the soil, in between the soil particles, right? So when the pores are present, water can percolate into the soil. Air can also enter into the soil and reaches to the root. So unless this water reaches to the root, it won't be available for the plant. And again, air is also important for the roots also. Root also respire. So that for that they require air, right? Soil health and soil quality are terms used interchangeably to describe soil that are not only fertile but also possesses beneficial physical and biological practices. So sometimes we use the term soil health and also sometimes we use the term soil quality. So what does this mean? These terms means that the soil is, if healthy, then it is fertile. The soil quality is good, then it is fertile, right? And if it is not good, not healthy, means the soil is not fertile. So how this fertility is dependent? Fertility is dependent upon the physical and biological properties of the soil, right? What is soil quality? Soil quality is how well soil does what we want to do. Right? We want to do what? We want to grow crops. And if the soil is the quality of the soil is well, then we can grow our crop in a better way. Soil quality is the capacity of a specific kind of soil to function, to sustain plants and animals' productivity. So they can sustain plants and animal productivity, right? So if the soil can maintain the plant and animal productivity, then we can say that the quality of the soil is good. And that maintain and enhance water and air quality. So availability of air should be there in the soil. Water can percolate into the soil and also support human health and habitation. So how it is going to help the human health? By providing food crops to the human, right? So that is very, very important. Soil fertility is the ability of a soil to provide the nutrients needed by the crop plants to grow. So this soil fertility means that the soil is having the ability to provide all the nutrients. Mean these important nutrients must be present in the soil, right? So important nutrients, when they are present in the soil, then we can say the soil is fertile. The soil is fertile, and that is needed by crop plants to grow. Means these particular nutrients are very important for the growth of the crop plants. The primary nutrients plant take up from the soil include nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, right? So these are some of the important nutrients, and we must say that these are the primary nutrients that must present in this soil, right? And those are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. So when these primary nutrients are present in the soil, then only we can say that the soil is fertile. Frequently, we need to supplement soil nutrients by adding fertilizers, manure, compost for good crop growth, right? So if we are continuously using the cropland for the growth of the crop plants, so the important nutrients can be taken by every cycle of the crop plants that we are growing in the cropland, right? So every turn there will be a loss of nutrient from the soil. Where these nutrients are growing, these nutrients are going to the crop plants, right? So these nutrients should be replenished in the soil, or again we can supplement to the soil. How we can supplement? By adding fertilizer, by adding manure or compost, right? And that we are doing to get the good crop growth, right? Plants take up many other nutrients from the soil, but there is usually enough of these secondary nutrients in the soil, so there is no need to add more. So other secondary nutrients are required in a very small quantity. These nutrients are required in a very small quantity, but they are very important, right? And they are sufficiently present in the soil, so we do not need to add that particular nutrient time to time, but these primary nutrient must be supplemented after every cycle of the crop plant. Soil pH is another important aspect of soil fertility. So soil is fertile, and that is also dependent upon its pH. What is the pH of the soil? pH is not a plant nutrient, but rather is a measure of the acidity of the soil, right? So we have already discussed this in another session. So I'm just referring here that pH is one of the important aspects that determines the soil fertility, right? So we cannot ignore that. Most crop grow best when the soil pH falls between 6.2 to 6.8, means slightly acidic. If the soil is slightly acidic, that it ranges between 6.2 to 6.8, then the crop growth is in the best way, right? If we are considering the pH, this is the range in which plant roots can best absorb most of the nutrients from the soil, and this slight acidic pH also favors the growth of the microorganism and the worms. And if the soil becomes higher acidity, reaches to the higher acidity or higher alkalinity, then it can affect the absorption of the important nutrient as well as the presence of microorganism and important worms in the soil. Organic matter. This is also one of the very important point. the presence of organic matter in the soil. Organic matter is composed of plants and animal residue. So the plants and animals, when die, they are present in the soil only. And these dead soil microorganism, living and dead soil microorganism, and the substances produced through the decomposition. So with the process of decomposition, all the dead plants and animals get converted to organic matter and changes to later manure. This happened because of the process called decomposition, right? And for this we required microorganisms. Microorganisms means bacteria and fungi. We required some bacteria and fungi. So they work on these dead plants and animals. They grow on these dead plants and animals, and they do the process of decomposition. They changes the complex substances present in their body to the simpler forms, and that is process of decomposition. Now this organic matter changes to manure, right? Microorganism and worms are required. So most agricultural soil contain only a small proportion of organic matter, usually less than 5%. But this small amount plays a very large role in the soil quality. It can also increase the water holding capacity. Right? So this is important, that these decomposed manure that is present in the soil, this is present in just 5%, right? But their presence is very, very important. Soil organic matter tends to improve the soil fertility, soil structure, and soil biological activity. So it is increasing the soil fertility by adding nutrients, to the soil. Right? So this increasing the soil fertility. They increase the soil structure also. Soil structure means this manure when added, it increases the structure as they can hold the water in a better way, right? And can bind the soil also. This manure also support the biological activity, that is presence of bacteria, that is microorganisms, and also worms. Organic matter is added to soil through cover crops, manure, compost, and crop rotation. So sometimes we cover the crops, right, with the dead leaves, straw, everything. Okay. We also put manure time to time in our cropland. We add compost. We can do the compost in our farmland also. Whatever the biological waste material that we can dig in a pit in our cropland, and we can deposit all that matter here. And there will be lots of microorganism and worms that are present. Microorganism and worms that we can put in it. So all those biodegradable substances that are present, that can be changes to compost with the help of presence of microorganism and worms. And later this compost material can taken out and put into the farmland. Right? Crop rotation also added organic matter to the soil. Soil texture, very important. Soil texture is an important soil characteristics that influences many aspects of the soil quality. The textural class of a soil is determined by the percentage of sand, silt, and clay. So these are the different types of soil particles. sand, silt, and clay. Three different types of soil particles, right? And their percentage decide the texture of the soil. So here you can see the black soil, here you can see red soil, here you can see some you can see the desert that is having a lot of sand in it, and here you can see the brown or the laterite soil, right? So different color of the soil, different texture of the soil is just because this sand, silt, and clay vary from soil to soil, right? So soil are usually made up of mix of these three particles size, right? So sand particles are relatively large and clay particle very tiny in comparison to the sand, and silt particles are medium size, means silt present in between the sand and clay. Okay, the clay is the very fine and very tiny in comparison to the sand. Clay and silt particles hold more water and plant nutrients along their surfaces. So clay and silt are very, very important as they can hold more water. So soil particle are there, water can be present surrounding it, and some nutrients are also present surrounding it, right? So this clay and silt are very important in this respect, right? So clay and silt particle hold more water and plant nutrients along their surface than the sand particles, and this sand particle is quite larger as compares to the clay and silt particle. Soil texture is an inherent property of the soil and does not change under different management practices. So this is not going to change. Soil texture is not going to change in the management practices. Soil can be classified as one of the four major textural classes: sand, silt, loam, and clay. There are four different class of the soil depending on the soil texture. These are based on the proportion of the particle size found in each soil. Light soil refers to soil high in the sand relative to clay, while heavy soil are made up of largely of clay. If the soils are heavy, right, then they are made up of clay, and if the soil is light, then it is made up of sand relatively to clay. Okay, high in sand relatively to clay. So here you can see the relative soil particle size. So sand particle, you can see how much it is, right? 1 to 2 means approximately 1 millimeter. Silt, you can see the silt is so small, right? And clay, invisible in this scale if we are measuring in the terms of millimeter. Soil particles vary greatly in size as shown in this illustration, in the previous illustration, right? Illustration courtesy to this Meg de Brito. So this was the courtesy for this particular image. Knowing the texture of the soil provides you with quite a bit information about how well the soil holds water. So this texture is very, very important to study because it tells you how the soil going to hold water. Means soil holding capacity depends upon the texture of the soil. So it is very important to study about texture of the soil. It holds and releases nutrients and responds to the different tillage practices. So not only it holds the soil, hold the water particles, but also it holds and releases the nutrients. So this is the ultimate thing that soil going to provides to the crop, that is nutrients, right? And this nutrients availability is where it is surrounding the soil particles, right? And the soil particle depend upon which characteristic? Texture of the soil. So it is very important to study the texture of the soil. For example, clay soil will hold more nutrients and more water compared to the sandy soil, right? So clay soil is going to hold more nutrients and more water. So these two things that soil provide to the crop plant, right? What it provide? Nutrient and water, right? So the clay soil, this particular clay soil provide more nutrients and more water as compared to the sandy soil, but will be more susceptible to the compaction from plowing and cultivating. But it is not good for, it is susceptible to compaction, means it become very easily compact soil, and that is not good, right? While soil texture in the proportion of the three soil particle types, sand, silt and clay, soil structure refers to how those particles are arranged in space. So this is relatively soil particle size study, as they are very important to determine the texture of the soil. And on the texture of the soil, the availability of the nutrients and water holding capacity of the soil depends. We cannot change soil texture, right? But we can manage soils to improve the soil structure, right? But sometimes we can manage soils by changing the soil structure, by improving the soil structure. But soil texture cannot be altered or manipulated. Soil with good structure has approximately 40 to 60% of its volume in pore space. So they are having good structure. Soil with good structure, it is having 40 to 60% of it having pore space or empty space between the soil particles. So this empty space is actually not empty. This empty space is taken by water and air. So water and air can get into these pore spaces and roots can grow from these spaces. And it also provide, these spaces also provide to penetrate the root deep into the soil. So it provides the way to growth of the roots here. In a healthy soil, particles of sand, silt and clay aren't floating around themselves. They are joined up with other particles, bits of organic matter and small pore spaces into the soil aggregate, right? So in healthy soil, particle of sand, silt and clay, they are not floating around themselves. They are not floating. They are joined with the other particles like bits of organic matter, and small pore spaces are also present in between them. Stronger, more stable aggregate stick together, and even when hit by the raindrop or crushed by a footstep. Okay, so stronger, the surface is very stronger and more stable aggregate and stick together. So even when hit by the raindrop or crushed by the footstep. So a handful of healthy soil feels crumbly and light due to the most of these stable aggregates. Soil compaction, how compact the soil is, very, very important, as it is deciding how deep a root can grow into the soil, right? So it is very important to study about compaction of the soil. Soil compaction occurs when soil aggregates are pushed close together and pore spaces shrink. Means the pore spaces are less available or not available, right? Soil aggregates are pushed and become close together. So no air spaces are present, no spaces in between the soil particles. So there is no pore spaces are present, or the pore spaces get shrink. So this usually occur when a heavy tractor, truck and other machines are driven over the soil. But this occur when heavy tractors and other machines are driven over the soil, particularly if soils are wet and soil can become compacted at the surface. So if any heavy machines are running over the surface of the soil, so it create a lot of pressure on the soil. And what happens? All the air spaces that are present, okay, all the pores that are present, it become very compact, right? But also the layer of soil just below the deep of tillage, subsoil compaction. So generally the subsoil is already compact, right? And if we create a pressure above the top layer of the soil, then also the top layer also get compacted. Plants have difficulty growing in the compact soil because of soil aggregates are pressed together. So this soil aggregates are pressed together means with the help of pressure, they are compacted together, right? And this is becoming, means plant's roots become very difficult to penetrate these compact soil. Okay, so leaving little pore space for air and water to percolate, which are essential for the root growth. So here you can see no compaction means so roots can grow so vigorously, right? And there is a proper growth of the plant you can see here. And here the compacted soil, the soil is compact, so the root cannot penetrate deep into the soil, and the nutrient that are available here, the water that are available here is not going to reach to this root level. So there you can see a stunted growth or not a proper growth in the plant. So the compact soil is not giving proper growth to the plant, whereas no compaction present in the soil means lot of air spaces are present, lot of pores are present, then you can see plant growth. Plants do not grow well in the compacted soil because there is less space between the soil particles for the roots to grow into it. And here you can see the previous slide shows the image, and the courtesy goes to Meg D. Brito. Water holding capacity, again very, very important, water holding capacity, and this also depends upon the type of organic matter present in the soil, amount of the water organic matter present in the soil, and also the pores that are present in the soil, right? So soil water holding capacity is the amount of water that is given soil can hold and then make available to crop for use. Okay, so means soil water holding capacity means a particular soil that can hold water to its surface, soil particle that can hold water, or the soil that can have a water in the soil structure, right? And that particular water is available to the crop use. Water holding capacity is largely determined by the soil texture and by the amount of pore spaces in the soil. So this is very, very two important points, means the soil water holding capacity depend upon texture of the soil and also the pore spaces that are present in the soil where water and air can be found. These pores presence of these pores are very, very important. Sandy soil have lower water holding capacity, while silt and clay soil tend to have higher water holding capacity. So here the sandy soil that are present most in the desert region, right? So they are having less water holding capacity, whereas clay and silt soil are having higher water holding capacity. Crop grown in sandy soil will need to be irrigated more frequently but with less total water than a crop grown in the clay or silty soil. A clay or the silty soil will hold more water for the crop to use, so can be irrigated less frequently. So means continuously you are not going to give water to the plant, because this two types of soil, that is silt soil and clay soil, they are having a water holding capacity. They can hold the water for a long duration of time. So time to time you do not have to give water to the plants. Compacted soil have less pore spaces for the water and therefore have lower water holding capacity. This we have already discussed. Soil biological activity, very important. Healthy soil are teamed with a living organism. So what this healthy soil are teaming with it is making a team with the living organism. So what are those microorganisms? bacteria, fungi, insects, and worms, or specifically if we talk about the worm, then it is earthworms. As these living things go through their life cycles, they perform many functions that help to improve the quality of the soil. So that they are going to improve the quality of the soil as they complete their life cycle in the soil only, right? So they are adding their decomposed matter into the soil only, right? Soil organism decompose fresh organic matter such as crop residues and the animal manure. So whatever the manure is there, whatever the crop residue is there, these particular organism decompose that particular component of the soil, that is crop residue and animal manure. In the process, they help soil particles to stick together into the stable aggregate. So this presence of this manure stick together the soil particle and form stable aggregate. So formation of this aggregates is very, very important. They also create humus, a form of organic matter that doesn't decompose further, and this helps soil to hold water and nutrients. Soil with higher biological activity tend to have fewer plant disease organism. Very important. So the soil which is having higher biological activity, okay, and the plant that are growing in these soil that is having higher biological activity, it has been seen that they are having less plant diseases. Earthworms tunnel through the soil, opening up pathways for air and water to move into the soil. So the earthworm that are present in the soil, they makes their holes in it, right? They live inside the soil, and when they make their holes, they are making a pathway through which water and air can enter into the soil, and that air and water is available for the roots of the crop plants. When water and rainfall or irrigation washes over bare soil or wind blows over the bare soil, soil particles may be washed or blown away out of the field, right? So when there is a lot of rainfall, okay, so it washes away the upper surface of the soil, okay, bare soil. So this process is called soil erosion. The farming practices we use to stop erosion are known as soil conservation practices. So this soil conservation must be done to conserve the soil. So there are different measures to conserve the soil. Healthy soil is a very valuable natural resource, and we don't want to lose soil out of our field. Soil particles that erode from fields can cause environmental problems such as polluting cracks, rivers, lakes, and even oceans. So these soil particles, when they are eroded by the surface of soil, then they can reach to the nearby rivers, lakes, and oceans, and they can pollute that. Airborne soil particles can lower the air quality and cause respiratory illness. So when these soil particles, when present in the air for longer duration of time, then they can cause respiratory illness. Farmers can protect soil from the erosion by limiting the time when there is a bare soil. So we should not leave our soil bare in the field. Improving soil structure and by managing tillage, irrigation, and crop rotation, right? So there are different methods to conserve soil, that are crop rotation, reduced tillage, mulching, crop slope farming, and cover cropping. We will have one more session to cover up these important conservation methods, right? So till here we have completed all the topics that were allotted for this particular session. Thank you very much.